Is it on now? Yeah, it is on. Something there. Hari bol. I'm hitting it. There's something. Just turn it up. Up, 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 up. The red. Put the reds up. Just put the reds up. The reds. The red. Hari bol. More. A little more. Hare Krishna. Oh, that's plenty. Let me start to get a little interference. Someday, maybe. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa, Varudikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Varudikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Are we on text 23, Marcy? We are, right? Oh, I was right. Text 23, okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 23rd day of April, 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Text number 23, the bottom of page 554. Upadrasthana mantacha Bhakta Bhokta Maheshwaraha Paramatmeti chapyukto Dehismin purushak paraha Upadrashtana mantacha Bharta bhokta maheshwaraha Paramatmeti chapyukto Dehismin purushak paraha Upadrashtana mantacha Bharta bhokta maheshwaraha Paramatmeti chapyukto Dehismin purushak paraha. Acharya Nishta Prabhu. Upadrashtana mantacha Bharta bhokta maheshwaraha Paramatmeti chapyukto Dehismin purushak paraha. Mukunda. Upadrashtana mantacha Bharta bhokta maheshwaraha Paramatmeti chapyukto Dehismin purushak paraha. Upadrashtana mantacha Bharta bhokta maheshwaraha Paramatmeti chapyukto Dehismin purushak paraha. Upadrashtana mantacha Bharta bhokta maheshwaraha Paramatmeti chapyukto Dehismin purushak paraha. Upadrashta, overseer, Anumanta, permitter. Cha, also, Bharta, master, Bhokta, supreme enjoyer, Maha Ishvaraha, the supreme lord, Parama Atma, the super soul. Iti, also, Cha, and Api, indeed, Uktaha, is said, Dehe, in the body, Asmin, this, Purushaha, enjoyer, Paraha, transcendental. Purport. Translation. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. Purport. It is stated here that the super soul, who is always with the individual soul, is the representation of the supreme Lord. He is not an ordinary living entity. Because the monist philosophers take the knower of the body to be one, they think that there is no difference between the super soul and the individual soul. To clarify this, the Lord says that he is represented as the Paramatma in every body. He is different from the individual soul. He is para, transcendental. The individual soul enjoys the activities of a particular field, but the super soul is present not as finite enjoyer, nor as one taking part in bodily activities, but as the witness, the overseer, the permitter, and supreme enjoyer. His name is Paramatma, not Atma, and he is transcendental. It is distinctly clear that the Atma and Paramatma are different. The super soul, the Paramatma, has legs and hands everywhere, but the individual soul does not. And because the Paramatma is the Supreme Lord, he is present within to sanction the individual soul's desiring material enjoyment. Without the sanction of the Supreme Soul, the individual soul cannot do anything. The individual is Bhukta, or the sustained, and the Lord is Bhokta, or the maintainer. There are innumerable living entities, and he is staying in them as a friend. The fact is that every individual living entity is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and both of them are very intimately related as friends. But the living entity has the tendency to reject the sanction of the Supreme Lord and act independently in an attempt to dominate nature. And because he has this tendency, he is called the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. The living entity can be situated either in the material energy or in the spiritual energy. As long as he is conditioned by the material energy, the Supreme Lord, as his friend, the Super Soul, stays with him just to get him to return to the spiritual energy. The Lord is always eager to take him back to the spiritual energy, but due to his minute independence, the individual entity is continually rejecting the association of spiritual light. This misuse of independence is the cause of his material strife in the conditioned nature. The Lord, therefore, is always giving instruction from within and from without. From without, he gives instruction, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, and from within, he tries to convince the living entity that his activities in the material field are not conducive to real happiness. Just give it up and turn your faith toward me, then you will be happy, he says. Thus, the intelligent person who places his faith in the Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, begins to advance toward a blissful, eternal life of knowledge. Om Jnana Timirandasya, Jnanandjana Shalakaya, Chakshu Unmilitam Mena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Time out. Make sure this is available when and if I need them. Okay. So, this is expansion or elaboration on what Krishna has explained already about the individual soul and the super soul. You remember he began to review, with 6 questions. Arjuna has 6 questions. What is the Chaitra, the body, and the Chaitra Ga, the knower of the body? What is Purusha and Prakriti? What is the living entity in the enjoying mood? That's the Purusha. And Prakriti, in general, what is nature? Not just our individual Chaitra, but this whole world. What is Prakriti? And what is knowledge, and what is the goal of knowledge? These are the 6 questions. So, in the previous verse, we had this, as Srila Prabhupada says, text 22, this verse is very important for understanding how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. So in text 22, we had Purushak Prakatisto hi Bhunkte Prakatijan Gunan Karanang Gunasango Sya Sadasadyoni Janmasu. The living entity is within material energy. The superior energy as the living entity, para prakriti, or in the mood of enjoyer, the purusha, individual purusha, is within prakriti, within material energy, the modes of nature. And he's experiencing the gunas, the 3 gunas, born from that material energy. This material energy is working according to the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And these modes enter into our mind and condition us. If the mind is in the mode of passion, then you want to enjoy very much. You work hard to get the facilities for enjoyment. If you're in mode of goodness, you're a little more reflective. You're not so much controlled by the passions, and you want to be clean. You want to be elevated. In mode of ignorance, that's even worse. Madness, illusion, sleep, laziness. The qualities from the next chapter we'll explore. So, but as human beings, as opposed to lower animals, we have some intelligence by which we can choose to cultivate different modes. Or as said here, gunasanga. We can associate with people, things, music, food in different modes, and then take on those modes. The modes will affect us and infect us. But we can decide so that as we associate, that is the cause of us getting good or bad bodies. Sadasad yoni janmasu literally means higher or lower births. It's all in our hands. But we're within the material energy. We're more or less controlled by the material energy, though we have minute independence. On the other hand, there is the Supreme Soul, Paramatma. This is the Purusha, individual Atma. The next verse we read today, the Upadrashta and Umanta, the different qualities given. The overseer, he's the ultimate enjoyer, maintainer, and permitter. He sanctions what we want to do. Now elsewhere we also learn that besides just sanctioning and overseeing, he also supplies the intelligence by which we can do it. Right? He says, what is that? Sarvasya chaham mridisannivishto mattaks matir jnanam apohanansha. in the 15th chapter, he will say, I am within everyone's body as a super soul, sarvasachaham riddhi sannivishta, within the heart. And I'm supplying the knowledge, remembrance, and also forgetfulness. So, without the super soul's sanction, we can't do anything. Because he's supplying our intelligence. Even the lower animals, without intelligence, they're also paralyzed. They're rudimentary intelligence they have to have. So, this is the situation we're in. There's two souls in the body. Now, that Paramatma, he's not just a indifferent, administrator, if you will. He also cares. He's staying with us because he wants to try to get us out of this material world. He's constantly giving us good instruction. Now, we can't hear it, but Prabhupada sometimes says that conscience that we have, that's the super soul, faintly, trying to guide us in the right direction. But more importantly, he comes externally in two forms, as the spiritual master, or let's say spiritual masters, and as the Shastra. So, and from within, if we purify, we can begin to feel our intelligence guided by the super soul. The pure devotees are guided at every moment by the super soul. So this is the different roles of the different ontology of the individual soul and the super soul. So in Krishna consciousness, we're trying very much to come in contact and hear or receive the message from the super soul, and to mold our life in such a way. And the more we do that, the more we feel in tune with the divine, but in a more popular way. It's just like if someone follows his conscience and does the right thing. Usually there might be a price to pay, right, externally. Okay, I confessed. I stole the cookies in the cookie jar. Little kid under the... So on one side he feels bad, but on the other side, there's a certain sense. I did the right thing. He's being trained. Just like Freud had this idea of the superego that's given by education. Otherwise, kids grow up and they're just little animals, right? They just do what they want to do. So the education, the training is there, trying to impart some sense of right and wrong, right? What's right, what's wrong, what's dharmic, what's adharmic. So that's equivalent. It's a reflection of what we're trying to do on the absolute scale. The spiritual master is like a father, or mother in some cases, and they're trying to give us the absolute truth of what is right and what is wrong in the ultimate sense. That's what this whole book is about. Arjuna, from his very conscientious point of view, it was right to leave the battlefield. And you may say, oh yeah, he was a conscientious objector. That was great, Yeah, that works in the Vietnam War, or some other ridiculous war that they're funding to be a conscientious objector. Then you're doing the right thing. But in his particular case, it was the wrong thing. Even though he had so many arguments from his relative point of view, even from the Vedas, right? If you study chapter 1, you see, yes, if I kill all these men, and the women will be unprotected, and the world will be overrun with Varna Sankara. Varna Sankara really means mixing of castes, but it's understood that it's not good, is that it creates a population that doesn't know, they're neither here nor there. They don't know what to do, and they create havoc in this world. That's what we have. But Varna Sankara, Prabhupada, is an unwanted population. Yeah. So that's what we have. So Arjuna had all his arguments down, but he was off base. Even though he was quoting the Vedas, Krishna chastised him, very first verse of instruction. Ashotchana vashotchastram pragyabhadam shabhasase. Pragyabhadam, you're speaking so-called learned words, but you're not really a pundit. You're lamenting for what's not worthy of lamenting, the material body. There's a later verse, a few verses later, it says, Jatasahi dhruva mrityu dhruvam janma matasyata tasmadapariharyate natram shochitamahasi. Says, for one who is born, death is certain. And for one who is dead, birth is certain. So why lament the unavoidable? You see? In other words, if there's an overarching principle of right, it's the right thing to do, to engage in the war, that's what you should focus on. Not your emotional attachment to your friends and relatives and so all these different things. This was the stark choice that Arjuna had. And that's why he asked Krishna to please instruct me about my ultimate good, about what is real Dharma. I'm confused about it. In other words, Dharma is supposed to bring about good. That's why Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. If you think, economic development is the best thing, which allows for sense gratification, then we need Dharma to really bring that about. We can try to do it in an adharmic way, cheating and thievery and so forth, but they won't bring about the actual happiness. You see? So that's why they have Dharma, Artha, Kama, Dharma, Artha, Kama. But we just learned in the morning class, we studied the morning class, these trivarkikas, means three, without any consideration for moksha, is that they don't make any progress. They don't really progress toward their ultimate happiness. Even if you go to heaven, you go to Brahmaloka. If you're not a devotee, then you just come back down here and you haven't done anything. It's Shrama Eva Kevalam. That's a phrase worth memorizing. Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. Also you say, Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. Okay, which means, Shrama means hard work. Eva Kevalam means that's all. That's only. In other words, you work very hard for nothing. You know the example? I told you the Greek example. I've given the example so many times, forgive me, but they're ever fresh. Here we are at the ocean. The Greeks gave the example of, you want to know who's crazy? Go down to the beach, and if you see someone beating the waves very seriously with an iron rod for hours, they're nuts. But really, isn't that what material life is all about? Working hard, building up your funds, getting some, even the big family and the whole thing, all of this business. But that's not you. That's just your outer coat. You're living a lie. You're living the life of an amnesiac. And then you leave that body, all of it's left behind, and with great trepidation and fear and anxiety and pain. And you start on a new chapter. Who is it that said it fruts and struts his time upon the stage? It's a tale told by an idiot. Macbeth. I learned that when I was a kid. That's one of the lines. Basically, what use is this life? He gave a whole thing. I remember one line. You have the baby mewling and puking in his mother's arms. He's very graphic. So, but I mean, ultimately it comes to naught. So how to make it come to something? We have to progress toward the actual goal of life. That's why the Ganam and Gayam, what's the object of knowledge? No, what's the knowledge, the object, and the goal of knowledge? In other words, there's knowledge, then there's something that's the object of knowledge, and finally there's the goal of it all. If there's no goal, and it's just knowledge for knowledge's sake, again, you're just going up and down the Ferris wheel. You're not making any progress. So, knowing the difference between the soul and the individual soul and the super soul is so important. Now, Prabhupada personalizes here. This is the value, the ultimate value, of having a devotee explain the Bhagavad Gita, which really ends in devotional service. The final instruction is coming up. Just think of me, become my devotee. This is the most secret of all secrets. In other words, the ultimate message is. Think of me, become my devotee, offer your homage, bow down to me. You'll come to me, my friend, I promise you. This because you're my very dear friend. And just give up everything else. Give up all the so-called dharmas and just surrender to me. I'll protect you, you will have no sinful activity, you'll come to me. That's it. But people who are hung up, on different kinds of yoga, on the Karma Kanda section, they need to have that explained also. That's why the Bhagavad Gita has all the other verses in it. Right in chapter 2, Krishna talks about those who take a material view of the Vedas, Trivargika, again, the three Vedas, the Karma Kanda section and all of that. And he says, Yamimam pushpitam bhasham prabodhan javipashchataha Veda vada ratapada nanyarasti divanana. Avipashchata means they don't really know. They're attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas. Just like in the 5th canto, I think it's the 5th canto, where they describe the heavenly planets and also the subterranean heavenly planets. Do you know there's such a thing? And there are these rivers made of the Jambu Nadi, these huge mangoes get very ripe, they fall down and then create a river of mango juice. Don't you want to go there? I mean, drink fresh mango juice. Much cheaper than Sprouts. Yeah. But the point is, it's subterranean. It's not any nearer, you know. In other words, all of these places are there in the material world. We can strive for them. Or if you have, you know, if your circumference is a little, you know, is basically on this planet, there's so many things you can strive for. Isn't that what we were taught in school? You know, try to do the best you can. This is, you know, there's so many opportunities. You can be whatever you want to be. You know, it's the same idea. And then you get that in your head and you read about it and you idealize somebody, you know. Yajyadatharati Shreshtas, whatever the great man, you have so many exemplars. You know, and you strive. I mean, I remember, you know, baseball players, you know. You grow up with that. There's the heroes and you're striving this way, that way. You're always thinking, yes, I'll be like that in the future, you know. And then you achieve something, they give you the gold star. And it's all trying to just get you committed to aspiring for something in the material world. The Vedas also have that to a large degree. This is why Vyasadeva was unsatisfied, because he wrote about that, hoping to slip in some Krishna consciousness. But Narada said, no, they'll forget about the Krishna consciousness and just go for the sense gratification. You know, basically saying you wasted your time. Now you have to give the actual thing and nothing but. You know, that's what the Bhagavad Purana is. Dharma prochita kaita votra. Here in the Bhagavatam, here in the Hare Krishna movement, here in ISKCON, here in Lord Chaitanya's movement, there's no cheating religion. Nadanam, najanam, nasundarim. No money, there's nothing in the material world. Only aspiring for Krishna consciousness. It's not easy to keep your eye on that prize. You know, but there's so many diversions and the senses are pulling you this way, that way. The mind is full of all these latent desires. So that's why we need constant instruction here. Okay, any questions on these points? Okay, let's read one or two more. Text 24. Yahevam veti purusham prakatim chagunai saha sarvata vartamanopi nasabuyo vijayate. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. Purport: clear understanding of material nature, the supersoul, the individual soul, and their interrelation makes one eligible to become liberated and turn to the spiritual atmosphere without being forced to return to this material nature. This is the result of knowledge. The purpose of knowledge is to understand distinctly what the living entity has by chance, fallen into this material existence. By his personal endeavor in association with authorities, saintly persons, and a spiritual master, he has to understand his position and then revert to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness by understanding the Bhagavad Gita as it is explained by the personality of Godhead. Then it is certain that he will never come again into this material existence. He will be transferred into the spiritual world for a blissful eternal life of knowledge. Such a clear and valuable purport, invaluable. So what does it mean to understand? This is a very important topic. We've dealt with this before. This word shushu sho, means like ardent hearing. It really means taking the instruction within one's heart and following it. Otherwise, you don't really understand it. It's not. It's just goes in there, and it's another thing to think about. But everything in our books really is normative. Normative means that it encourages you to act one way and not another. That normative means ethical morality. It's not just something to study and place in some cubbyhole in your mind. In other words, Prabhupada really criticizes that at the beginning of the Gita in his preface and introduction. Why do we need another Gita? Because there's so many translations of the Bhagavad Gita that really are not presented by devotees, and because they aren't, one doesn't come to the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. And we've seen it can be misinterpreted so easily. Even the I remember long ago in the 60s and 70s when I started searching, you know, I came across different Bhagavad Gitas. And one group, I forget what it was, they just went as far as the 6th chapter and figured that's it. That's, you know, that's the final chapter. That's all we need. Really into pranayama, you know, because Krishna mentions pranayama twice, once in the 6th chapter and other times I think in the 5th chapter. And it was just, you know, and you have the charismatic, you know, somebody can quote Sanskrit and long beard and comes from India, especially coming from India, and you get a certain cachet. There's always somebody, you know, you can con, and before long you have a following, and then you cash in. So this is part of what Kali Yuga is about. Remember, this verse is important to know. Right in the beginning of the Gita, 1st chapter. Prayeno payashak sabhya kalavasmin yugejana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya yupadruta. That in this age, it's not a very good age for spiritual endeavor. When we know that there was a Satya Yuga, in which everybody is Brahminical and they all know how to meditate and, you know, everything's very peaceful and happy on earth, you know, basically. And everyone's advancing in Krishna consciousness, more or less, you know, pretty much. And then Satya, you know, and then Treta Yuga gets a little more disturbed, the mode of passion becomes a little more prominent, but still it's pretty, you know, you still live for 10,000 years and, you know, and sacrifice it. And it goes on like that. You get the Kali Yuga, we're well into it now, but still at the beginning, which is like inconceivable that we got 427,000 years of, I mean, as far as I can see, that it's accelerating downward. I don't know how we're going to manage it. By the force of Krishna consciousness, there's kind of a brake put on, apparently, at one point. Anyway, so here we are. You know, we don't live very long. If we live to be, you know, 75, then everything else after that is gravy, you know. But in previous ages, you know, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. So we don't live very long. We're not very eager for spiritual life. I mean, all glories to all of you who have come to this class and those who are regulars, you know. But we're basically a handful. There's what, 5 million people out there in this. But some of them are, you know, trying devotees. But the point is, it's very rare to really be serious. And then if you're serious, it's so easy to get misguided. Manda and sumanda matayo. That means that misguided. So many bogus yogis and so forth. And there you've wasted your, you know, your hard-earned money and your energy. Become this. There's one long article that came out recently about the old Rajneesh group. You remember that? I don't know. Maybe that's before your time. What is it? Osho. Yeah, he changed his name. You remember Osho? I mean, really a criminal enterprise. They did this thing in Oregon, you know, they actually tried to poison people. You know the whole thing? Yeah, did you know about that? Oh, it's horrible. And, you know, to think, but the followers were really into it. You know, they gave up all their money and they were adulation and all this stuff. You know, you had a certain power, charisma. And from our point of view, you look and say, whoa, you know, who can fall for that? But thank our, like my lucky stars, you know, Krishna, of course, guided us. I mean, he was prominent at that age in the 70s, you know, the 70s. I could have gone that way and gone down that road, and who knows. So that's this age. You know, manda matayo manda bhagya, and always disturbed. And so what chance do we have? So Lord Krishna, seeing how unqualified we were in the age, he comes as Lord Chaitanya, and he, you know, don't worry about it. You know, whatever you've done, and Jagai Madai are the evidence, you know, just chant Hare Krishna, surrender. And, you know, the big thing, don't sin no more. And it's a whole process to do that. But the point is, it's feasible. If you come in contact with the right persons, good association, the whole thing is Sangha. This was Prabhupada's great gift. His own Sangha, and how he attracted those who were serious enough to become good Sangha themselves. You can see how it can grow exponentially, you know. And even if, and let's face it, even if for some time you're pure and potent and you can get others to chant Hare Krishna, but then may come a thing that you fall away, and it's happened. Most of my godbrothers and godsisters are not really directly involved. Certain things happened that were unfortunate. I'm not going to get into it, But the point is that when the purity is there and the potency is there, and Krishna blesses it, then there can actually be a real change of heart, and you can really make progress in the mission to achieve self-realization, God-realization, and go back to Godhead. You know, it's totally miraculous. I mean, we take it for granted there's Hare Krishnas now, 50 years. But in 1965, it was impossible. Even Prabhupada's godbrothers, you know, remember Srimati Maraji? I mean, from a logical point of view, it said, oh, he's failing in health. He's 69 years old, you know? He's going to America with $5 and no contacts? No, I'm not going to give you a ride. You remember? Prabhupada sat outside the office and chanted. You see, there's that picture? He's sit-in. He basically had a sit-in. So he could, okay, I'll give you the seat. The free ride. Anyway, it was obviously under the guidance of Lord Chaitanya and the Goswamis, and Lord Chaitanya blessed it and empowered Prabhupada, and it was the right time and the right, there's so many amazing things. So here we are, we have a chance, there's a chance, if we actually follow seriously. So, if we understand this philosophy, which we can do from Prabhupada's books and regular reading, about the living entity interaction of the modes of nature, well, I mean, sometimes we're under the modes of nature, but if we, in our saner moments, we can see, yeah, I can see how I'm being affected by the modes of nature, and I can see how they're working, and I accept, you know, the soul of the super soul. I haven't really realized it yet, but it makes perfect sense. Then we're sure to attain liberation. We'll not take birth here again, regardless of our present position. So this is a great encouragement. The Prabhupada's books are full of positive encouragement like this. And by personal endeavor, in association with authorities, saintly persons, and a spiritual master, one has to understand one's position and then revert to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness. So the idea is, again, it's natural. It's our natural position. Our whole sojourn in this material world, billions of lifetimes of Brahma, who knows how long we've been here, doesn't really matter. But all of that is a huge mistake. It's just a huge mistake. And you know, we can accept that, but it's hard, you know, for people to accept that. So you have to kind of bring them along easily, you know, and attract them. And that's where the Hare Krishna mantra is so potent, because a little serious chanting, and then suddenly you get a different taste. You get a sense of a different reality. I remember I used to chant on my job and all the places and I remember distinctly, I'm walking out of a store, I think a supermarket or something, and I'm chanting, and suddenly I felt lighter. You know, maybe there was just like a whole bunch of karma or something but there was a lightness to it. And then from chanting, and don't you see how the world looks different? You know, suddenly, I mean, you can get a little bit of inkling of the realization that, yeah, this is all Krishna's energy, and I'm part of it. You know, you're kind of in tune, you know, a little bit. Then the modes act again, and so many things happen. But the thing is, there's definitely something there. Anyone can experience it, and what that does is pique your interest and should give you some shraddha, preliminary shraddha. Shraddha can mean different things. But Prabhupada said shraddha in his preliminary sense, and adau shraddha, tataksaru adam means in the beginning, is just some interest or some respect, enough to come in contact, open the book, read with some receptivity, you know, pursue it, to pursue the association like that. And that draws you on, but sadhu sangha, adau shraddha tataksaru sangha. And by the sangha, as we just learned in text 22, karanam guna sangosya, sadasad yoni janmasu. Everything is there in the sangha. As you associate with the gunas, or as you associate with those who are beyond the gunas, that causes your destiny, basically. So the key is getting enough intelligence, strengthening the intelligence, so you can guide the senses and the mind to always take good sangha. Even in the middle of the mode of, you know, of everyone in the mode of ignorance, you can still be transcendental. If you don't you keep chanting and you understand this is Krishna's material energy. You always give the example, Prabhupada walking down Broadway in Manhattan. And I remember Broadway before they turned it into a mini Disney World, you know, Times Square. It was all this pornography over here, this you know, little. That's what it was. If you want to go to Times Square, okay, that's where you go to get degraded. Prabhupada is walking around there looking for a bookstore to sell his books. He wasn't degraded. In other words, he was protected by always chanting, remembering Krishna. So we can have that protection too. And that inspiration from within and from without. From within, saying, yes, go to the class. And from without, we're reading Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. And inside, we should be cogitating and determining to act according to the instruction. And then the circuit is plugged in and the purification takes place. Sorry for the mixed metaphor. So any questions? We'll resume tomorrow and text 25. Hare Krishna. But now, back to Krishna book. We did some Nectar of Devotion last time. So we'll do Krishna book tonight and Nectar of Devotion tomorrow. I think that's how we're doing it. Okay. Uh-oh. They keep, I don't know if you have this, if you don't have an iPod or an iPad or an iPhone, you don't know. They keep trying to get me to upgrade my iOS. I don't do anything. They download it, 1.5 gigabytes of, and then they say, would you like to install it now? And I have to carefully press no. And then would you like to install it while you, they don't say while you sleep, but tonight? And I say no. And they say, so remind me later. If I don't press all those buttons, it immediately starts installing. I can't do anything and I can't reverse it. And who knows what ancient apps won't work anymore. Anyway. Hare Krishna. Big Brother is always watching through your iPad or iPhone. Okay, we're reading Krishna book. See? Look. Just happened on the iPod. Same thing. Install now? No. Later? Install tonight? No. Remind me later. And then I have to take it off, then it puts it back in. The same thing. This is... Alright, stop already. I'm going to have to go into airplane mode. Okay, Krishna book. I must admit, I forget exactly where we are, but... Okay. Oh, here we are. Krishna pleases his devotees. Yes. Now, let's just review, because Krishna left Vrindavan, went to Mathura. Akrura took him, remember? Because Kamsa found out that Krishna's there, and that he had killed all the demons he sent. Narada Muni is pushing things along. So Kamsa is saying, okay, I'll bring him here, and I'll kill him either with the big elephant. Nobody can stop Kuvalyapita. And if that fails, then I got my big wrestlers. Man, there's man mountains, Chanura, huge, and Krishna's just this slight little boy, And so that was Kamsa's plan. So he invites him in. And then, you remember what happens? There's this wonderful scene where he enters the city. Beautiful description of the city. And just a little editorial fun. When Prabhupada was dictating the Krishna book, sometimes the devotees couldn't understand his accent, So he's describing Mathura. I don't know if you recall, a beautiful description of Mathura, all of the, the different decorations that were there, and everyone was watching Krishna and taking him in their hearts as Krishna and Balaram and all the boys walked in. So it describes how Mathura was fortified, the original Krishna book, and it was surrounded by cannons for defense. And devotees didn't know, well, that's far out. They had cannons back there for defense. Cool. Didn't bother them that, sure they had gunpowder and big cannons like on a pirate ship. But what Prabhupada actually said was canals. Instead of canals, he'd been in the canals. But the typewriter, the typist couldn't understand that. Canals? No, canal. Cannons. Until finally I realized, I think I did, or Jai, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. So you go back to the original tape and you hear, oh, okay, canals. Prabhupada said, canals. In other words, moats, So they walk in, and you remember, first came of course all the ladies were oohing and eyeing, they had gone up to the ramparts and they were praising the gopis who always saw Krishna's beautiful verses. And then he meets the washermen, right, the washermen. And he had just finished doing the laundry for the king, and he had all of these very extravagant, beautiful clothes. And Krishna said, "Oh, please give me some of those clothes." In other words, he's transitioning from the coward boy to the prince. So he's got to had the right duds. So, but the washerman, fool that he was, he berated him for trying to get the clothes from the king. And if you do it again, you'll be arrested. You remember? So what happened? Zach, you heard? Yeah, karate chop, powerful. Cuts off his head. Ghastly scene is described. So they took some of the clothes that were bloodied, and he dressed himself, and some of the boys they dressed. So that's the next thing. So next, he sees. I think Kubja was next. You remember? Actually, before that, Akrura wanted to bring him home, and he said, "No, I have some things to do. I'll visit you later." So Akrura, very sadly, he separated from Krishna. But I'll visit you later. So then Kubja. Kubja means hunchback, Now, who did Raj say that she had been? Someone was born as Kubja. Was born in Chaitanya Leela. Who is it? Okay. But anyway, so Kubja is this cripple, and she's engaged with the making sandalwood pulp for the king. But as soon as she sees Krishna and Balaram, she's attracted. Now, just try to realize the washerman, he was a faithful servant of the king, of the king, and he paid for it. Yeah. Who? Shurpanakha. Yeah, that's been a Shurpanakha. Yeah. She means with nose cut off. That's a Shurpanakha means. So Kubja, the hunchback, or known also as Trivakra, bent in three places, not beautifully, but this way. So, not Tribhanga, but Trivakra. So she was taken with the boy. She fell in love. She's attracted, and so she says, "Oh, you deserve this sandalwood paste." Now you can imagine how the blessing of that, where she's placing it on, and they're relishing that. So Krishna straightens her out. It's described. He put his foot on her feet, and he put his fingers this way. It's described in the Sanskrit, and then she's straight. And now she's Tribhangi, no Trivakra. Very attractive. So she invites them home. Said, "Please come to my place." So Krishna is looking at Balaram. They're laughing. The boys are laughing. And Krishna, "Oh, well, thank you very much, because a woman like you is, just what I need. Far from home, for comfort. I'll visit you later." He said the same. She said the same thing. Then there's the Sudama, the garland maker. Now, Dhamma can also mean garland. So Sudama means he makes very nice garlands. And he immediately, provided beautiful garlands for the boys, and he blessed them long life, strong senses, go back to Godhead, everything like that. So anyway, then the whole thing happens. He kills Kuvayapada, and then he goes home and he breaks the bowl. First, big crack, and heart of Kamsa's. Kamsa couldn't sleep at night. He was seeing all these visions, And then Krishna went back to his camp and slept very soundly, it's described. Next morning, he goes, and then Kuvayapada is challenging him, I think, to the before the arena, before he can get inside. And so he plays with him, and finally he kills him, and he pulls out the tusk, and I think he pulled the tusk out and killed the elephant and the rider. So they had these tusks now as weapons. And gradually he's transitioning from no weapons to weapons. The first time he used any weapon was killing Kuvayapada with the, until then it's always with the hand, choking, sucking out you remember how he killed all the demons? Throwing them around, right? Vatsasura and Dhenukasura. No weapons. He's a coward boy. Now suddenly he's a prince, so he's getting to use weapons. Then finally he kills Kamsa with his bare hands. And after all is said and done, then finally he's quiet. Then he goes and visits. You see? Then he visits Akrura, you remember? And he visits Trivakra, Kubja, and he has a little interaction with her. So, that's where we were. We finished, and with Kubja, she was thus allowed to embrace Krishna with her arms and mitigate her long-cherished desire to have him as a visitor in her house. Now, she wasn't on the level of the gopis. She had some lust in her heart. The gopis just wanted to please Krishna, not a drop of lust. It's explained, Adi Lila chapter 4. If you really want to get into it, it's a wonderful chapter. It explains the difference between lust and love. So then here we are reading. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that one must be freed of all material sinful reactions before one can engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Simply by supplying sandalwood pulp to Krishna, Kubja was thus rewarded. She was not trained to worship Krishna in any other way. Therefore, she wanted to satisfy him by her profession. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the Lord can be worshipped even by one's profession, if it is sincerely offered for the pleasure of the Lord. Kubja told Krishna, "My dear friend, kindly remain with me at least for a few days and enjoy with me. My dear lotus-eyed friend, I cannot leave you immediately. Please grant my request." As stated in the Vedic versions, the Supreme Lord has multi-potencies. According to expert opinion, Kubja represents the Bhu Shakti, potency of Krishna, just as Srimati Radharani represents his Chit Shakti potency, Ladini Shakti. Although Kubja requested Krishna to remain with her for some days, Krishna politely impressed upon her that it was not possible for him to stay. Krishna visits this material world occasionally, whereas his connection with the spiritual world is eternal. Krishna is always present either in the Vaikuntha planets or in the Goloka Vrindavan planet. The technical term of his presence in the spiritual world is aprakata lila, means unmanifest here. And prakata is when he comes here. After satisfying Kubja with sweet words, Krishna returned home with Uddhava. There is a warning in the Bhagavatam that Krishna is not very easily worshipped, for he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the chief among the Vishnu Tattvas. To worship Krishna or have association with him is not very easy. Specifically, there is a warning for devotees attracted to Krishna through conjugal love. It's not good for them to desire sense gratification by direct association with Krishna. Actually, the activities of sense gratification are material. In the spiritual world, there are symptoms like kissing and embracing, but there is no sense gratificatory process as it exists in the material world. This warning is specifically for those known as sahajiyas, who take it for granted that Krishna is an ordinary human being. They desire to enjoy sex life with him in a perverted way. In a spiritual relationship, sense gratification is most insignificant. Anyone who desires a relationship of perverted sense gratification with Krishna must be considered less intelligent. His mentality requires to be reformed. After a while, Krishna fulfilled his promise to visit Akrura at his house. So, we're going to read about that tomorrow or next day. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Purushak prakatisto hi. Remember the phrase? Shrama evi kevalam. Okay. Shrama. Shrama is hard work. Eva kevalam means for the hard work itself. In other words, that's all you get.
or 30 something, or something like that. Something about days of the month. But I'm not something I Is he in line for quite a long number of times a year? And he's actually short. Does he travel with him? I've never seen him. I made him in New Zealand, but I've never ever seen him. Because he's from Mexico. He's Japanese type of. I mean, I don't know what point. How did you get over here? Yeah, Mother Parshakti dressed for the Prabhupada today, which actually,
Oh, you didn't get a chance right.
yeah, which actually, I think the Prabhupada wants to do it.
You can do it after the hour. Yeah. If you're going to die, yeah.
Shri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Bhagavad Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Prabhupada Paramahamsa Bhakti-Acharya Ashtotter to Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Thanks to all Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara SanDiego Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shampan Radhakan Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Ganga Mahi ki jai. Yamuna Mahi ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glory to the Son of the Book. All glory to the Son of the Book. All glory to the Son of the Book. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga.
All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Namaste, Namaste, Narayana. Namaste, Namaste, Narayana.
Jai
Go. You got his legs. Wow, tough. Whoa. This is, it'll be number.
No, Santosh.
Santosh.
Brahmacharya sees Srimati, who is a lady Bahasha. Do we pay a lady the same way? Who is Shishri Prabhu, or many other senior devotees who aren't Sannyasi, still play the bass. So, what if Malati, Mother Malati, what should I play her bass? Is it the same way?
I do. That's not Malati actually. That's not Malati actually.
It's always, you can't go wrong paying a bit. When in doubt, there. That's my basically some of my, yeah. Who's first? You did? 48 times. You like it? Dravida? Suresha?
Yeah.
Is that enough for you? And one? Yeah, and one? And some.
Acharya, are you taking?
Veggie? Would you like something, Ruth? Is that okay? How about a spoon? A little bit? Is that okay? One more. One or two? Half? That's Ramiji. You roll the plate. Out. Wheel the spoon. You guys want to get take this plate. What we got here? Why leave any? We good? Might as well finish it out.
Yeah.
Or if you're gonna avoid it.
Yeah.
Stories. And one is two. Like, you'll get it right. No. Because I'm a first reader. Yeah, that makes it clean.
Really?
Yeah.
You seem really good.
Well, two, so. Yeah. I can never read two. That's what I think it's in. Yeah, I'm not very good.
There?
That's what all the devotees say, but you guys were like...
Can I give you one more sweet? I took too much. Is that okay?
Yeah, but I can show you that. We have to work yesterday when I said, I can show you that.